Hi Aswath, welcome back.
Hello again. It's good to see you.
So, last time we talked about some random things. Let's keep this one a bit to the point. Let's try to keep it bit to the point. We see
We
how
are
it
learning.
goes.
We are still learning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's see how it goes. So I have some questions for you. I guess our audience might have some questions for you as well.
hmm
So like there is this question from my side. How was what did you do in schooling in your bachelor's and what led you here? What was there a turning point you always wanted or you always wanted to come here and study, do a master's, settle abroad?
Okay. Since we're on that topic, yeah. So I come from this place called Vellore. It's in the southern part of India, Tamil Nadu, basically, and been there for like my whole life, I guess, all my bachelors and stuff. So I did my bachelor's in VIT, and I did a mechanical engineering. The, I think we called it the evergreen trap. So yeah, I fell in that, and yeah, like when I was doing it, I already my specialization in bachelor's was already energy. So I had a very faint idea that I wanted to do more stuff related to energy and sustainability. It's just that I was not sure when I should go into it. So I worked for a couple of years, and then I realized, okay, fine, maybe now is the best time to start. Otherwise, you're too old, quote unquote, like in the Indian context of
Yeah,
things. Yeah.
I get that.
So yeah, so I did that, and I really think it was a good thing because then COVID happened, and if I was in India during COVID, I would probably never have come here or gone anywhere for that matter. So yeah, that's basically my story. I did, to be very specific to answer you, I had an idea that I wanted to study energy or renewable energy specifically. When I this happened during our class 12 examinations, we had a lot of power cut, like a lot. So at that time I was like, okay, maybe renewable energy is the better way about it. So yeah, it sort of stuck with me, I guess.
Okay, so if I understand from what you told, you do not regret your decision choosing mechanical engineering because that led to where you are. If you will have a chance to do it all over again, you'll probably not choose computer science. That's what I get. Am I right? Like,
I mean, it's I mean, like I really don't have any sort of thinking when it comes to this idea of doing things again, because it's like
yeah.
if you reset the clock, you anyways reset your memory, so you will be making the same choice again. So that's kind of how I approach that problem. So, but yeah, I mean, we are not into some fantasy genre
Okay.
here. Like, you go back in time with your memory, which that's too much hypothesis.
What if you could if you have unlimited time and you could do double masters? Will you take computer science or electrical engineering with or mechanical engineering?
I will probably, I mean, like it depends on how you want to approach it, because I will focus, since I have quote unquote unlimited time right now, I will focus on learning computer science, but I will do it separately. I would prefer not to do it as an education stream.
Yeah.
Kind of like, I don't know, go on YouTube or Coursera or whatever and learn it from there, practice by myself. So I would be focused more on electronics, especially, like microelectronic parts.
Yeah.
So like you can always learn to code, and you can always apply it in one part and you can take it to the other part, kind of that thing. But yeah, that's just my approach of it. But yeah, someone might say to me, like AI is important to learn and stuff like that. Yeah.
Okay, so for a tip for all our viewers out there, even if you are not studying computer science engineering and you want to learn programming, there are a lot of resources available online and offline. Like you can choose what you want. So that is just a suggestion. Maybe just hone your programming skills, even though you're doing a mechanical or civil or whatever engineering. Even if you're not doing engineering,
I think we've said this so many times already,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
So that's just a reminder. I guess a good reminder.
Yeah.
So on the same question, same context, you did a mechanical engineering. You worked for a few years there, and then you always wanted to be a person who is working towards sustainable world, sustainable energy or resources, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Why did you choose to come here in the Netherlands? Why not US or study further in India?
Okay, so again, like during my 2 years of working, I already had, like some exposure to different types of energy, and I realized that going into solar energy was my preference. So
Yeah.
again, this was purely a personal choice. So I started shortlisting colleges with that in my mind, and so the Netherlands was one of kinda the front runner in the shortlists that I did. So I guess it was a bit of a no-brainer in the sense that like ATU Delft, especially the solar energy, like they called it the PVMD,
Yeah.
photovoltaic, and I think they call the materials department or something. So that's where I did my thesis. By the way, I forgot their acronym, but yeah. So it's really reputed. It's one of the best that I could ever find in this part of the world or any part of the world.
Yeah,
So
but that does sound kind of counterintuitive, like a country where it rains more than 9 months a year. And I guess that's why they're researching in solar a lot,
yeah,
that how
yeah,
to
yeah,
improve the
like
efficiency.
you sort of know the worth of something when you
Yeah.
don't have it.
Yeah, I
Like
guess.
this country doesn't have a lot of sun, so they're like, yeah, let's do solar.
Yeah, right now when we are recording, there is snow out there. We just cycled for 4 kilometers to come here to record in.
Yeah, a lot of almost sleeping
Yeah.
instances.
So then you chose to come here. And TUDELT was an obvious choice. You did your masters, and you're working. So how does your day-to-day work feels like? What do you do on your day-to-day basis?
I mean, I am what you call a PV system engineer, PV as in photovoltaics.
Yeah.
So, yes, I work in the solar energy department. One of my life's missions succeeded there. So, yeah, and I mean, what I do is like I mostly focus on residential solar, and like if people need a system, they come to me like with their requests or their demands, and I take all of their considered situations like the house, where it is present, what are the things around it, inside it, like the electrical limits, all of those things. Like there are also some legal requirements. For example, when I say legal, it is in the terms of policy. Like you cannot go more than certain level of power, and that is like legislated by the government. So we can never cross that hard line. So I have to consider all of those things and propose them the best system that they can take. That's one of my tasks, and like the main task basically. But I also do some technical work. For example, I help out some of the other teams if they need an engineering question that they cannot solve. So I'm one of the people they usually come to because I know more of these things than they do. But yeah.
So the technical part, that okay, I can understand you might have learned that in your university, from your coursework or maybe your thesis. What about the policy part? Did you learn it here in the university or you're learning it at work?
Um, it is mostly at work because like the kind of policies we learn in the university is slightly more different as compared to what you call as policy at work. Like
Yeah.
in the work we have, it's like the legal guidelines for some very specific activities. So you, let's say you should not have more than, let's say, 400 volts in terms of what is called as a star current
Yeah.
phase. So something like that is, those things are defined, and those things are also like how the market is conformed. So that is the kind of things you learn at work. But whereas in the university, when you talk about policy, it is a slightly more a broader thing, I guess. Like you can say, for example, one of the assignments we did was we had to, like propose a transition, like like from whatever current, like they gave us one of the countries. I don't remember which one we worked on. I think it was Philippines or something. Like you have a present scenario over there, you have to make a note how to get them to transition to a hypothetically 100% energy. Yeah, there are a few assumptions that go into this, of course, But basically, those are the kind of things we learn in the university. Like give them a transition pathway, or like make a note. For example, do a cost benefit analysis and suggest remedial measures or corrective measures, or progress stuff like that. In the workplace, again, you can do some of these things, but not all of these things. Depends on the place you're working at, of course.
That sounds really interesting. So, does these policies do they change with countries, or like I guess they're country dependent. They are not. You don't have the universal policies that you can only have this much. I guess it even changes between US and Europe, because in Europe we use AC 50 hertz, 230 volts. In US they use 100 volts, 60 hertz or something
60
like
hertz,
that.
yeah. So I mean, what you have just mentioned is basically like the electrical connection.
Yeah.
What we, I think, 50 hertz is kind of also what we use in India, by the way.
Yeah.
So like, those things are somewhat universal in the sense that like some places adopt a similar frequency,
Yeah.
adopt a similar voltage, not the 110. I don't even know what the Americans are doing, but sure. So most countries have a 230 volt in terms of what you call a single phase current, and 230 is for every phase, even if it is a three phase current. So yeah, I don't know if you guys ever look at your meters in your house. You will have multiple phases. Like sometimes you would not have electricity in one phase. You turn the knob and suddenly you will have light. Like I don't know if you ever get to experiment with those things, but yeah. Again, these things are taken at a industry level kind of a perspective. So some of these things are common, but most things are specific to countries. Like I mean, take for example, you can't even use the same charging point
Yeah.
in India that you use in US, that you use in the Europe. I mean, you need one of those adapters everywhere, and we had that struggle when we came here
Yeah.
first. I mean, so yeah, so
You can also see one of the European chargers maybe in the game.
yeah. I mean, this is probably one of those things which has that circular,
Yeah.
slot kind of thing. Whereas in India we have that little flat thing. So yeah, it's so weird. That every time I think about it. But yeah, like that's one part. You also have another thing like what is called as a rated power limit. So something like this, it changes a lot with countries. I mean, honestly, here it is a lot more defined, and I haven't quite started reading up on what happens in India because I know the basics. Again, I know that some of these things are very very different between states. So I still don't know if they have a universal like a national policy for this. If they do, well, I have to read that. So yeah, if you guys probably know more than me, and some of you might, please let me know.
Yeah, so are you planning to move back to India, or like maybe that is something you can think about? You don't have to answer it now.
Yeah, I mean, it is still a work in progress. I have
Okay.
not yet,
Because
put up
your
my
question,
mind,
it just reminded me. Maybe you're planning to go back home. That's why you're like
I don't
trying to
know.
get to know about the policies back at home. Maybe.
Yeah, it's always good to know everything, I mean, even if, for example, I want to make a solar panel system in my own house in India,
Yeah.
I anyways have to learn the whole thing. So I might as well learn it irrespective of the idea of going back or not. So it's good to always know. But yeah, speaking of, maybe we'll circle back to that point and start with your case. So do you plan to go back to India? I mean,
So yeah, that is something I am considering. Like I'm still thinking about figuring it out. What is out there? Being a mechatronics engineer, at least whatever I know, there are not many opportunities in India as of now. I am really hopeful. Fingers crossed that soon in future, in a year or 10 years, I don't know. Maybe there will be something.
come over to the renewables, bro.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, so that is something I've been reading a lot, that India is doing really well, at least in solar and wind. All other renewables I don't know about, but in solar, so I am from Madhya Pradesh, and we have had a lot of solar plants installed in recent years.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, like, I mean, traditionally, if you look at it from the long, like, age-old stuff, India has been a user of biomass. I
Yeah.
mean, it has been a very traditional thing in India already. On top of, and coal was a very new phenomenon as far as India is concerned. So more than that, we of course, we especially after independence, we had a lot of dams. So we are very much into hydroelectricity also, but the rest of them did not quite pick up until later. So we still had wind energy, like
Yeah.
a lot of windmills. For example, the town south, near like Nagarkoil, for example, I've seen a lot of windmills over there. But yeah, solar was until I think even 5 years ago or something. It looked like a slightly elite concept, if I can put it that way. So we did have solar water heaters.
Yeah.
We did not really. I don't know many people who were doing solar as an electricity generation thing, but yeah, I think now that is changing, and it's changing by the millions. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's a really good thing,
And
honestly.
there's one thing I saw when I was young. I do not see it anywhere. We used to have these solar cookers, so you put rice inside it, and it is used to focus light on.
Yeah. No, I mean, well, I mean, it's a nice thing to have, but honestly, for you to use that, you have to be outside,
Yeah.
or you have to set your cooker outside, and you go to the shade or something. I mean, there are some inconveniences associated with something like that. So it's good to go electric, but make sure you have solar panels, I guess. And that's me shamelessly pitching renewable energy
Yeah.
again, by the way. But okay.
And regarding biomass, so actually, in my startup days, we would try to work on that. That part is a bit tricky because storing. So nowadays, people are using balloons or these big bags, inflatable bags. I guess that is something maybe I guess need to be explored bit more. So
I mean,
we have a lot of a really big like a lot of animal resources, and they generate a lot of biomass which you can really use to
yeah,
harvest methane out of it.
yeah. I mean, biomass by itself, I mean, this is what I like, like biomass has been made into a sort of declustered kind of a
Yeah.
thing. Like one village will have, like a biomass plant kind of a thing. So I really like that kind of concept because that will help you to have, I don't know, cooking fuel, for example, within a limited frame. So and then of course you can get into the whole idea of transferring energy to a nearby place or something, depending upon supply, demand, and everything, availability of raw material, of course. But then also more than anything, like in terms of, let's say, what should I put it, like more than even methane, I think people are now considering more about bioethanol in India, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's becoming a bit more popular these days, like and also the whole, like ethanol petrol blend thing. I think 20% is the target,
I
if
don't
I'm
know.
not
So I
wrong. Yeah.
remember a decade ago, MP government was asking farmers to plant. I forgot the name of the plant. Like you farm that one, and you will get more incentive for that. They didn't pick up enough pace, I guess, that time. But hopefully in near future, I don't know a lot about it, but that is something really good, I guess, if you can replace petrol with a biofuel.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Means
one
I
of
don't
the.
know the.
Nah, I mean, of course, I mean, it's something that people have been researching a lot. Honestly, like even in my bachelor time, like
Yeah.
I know at least at least 3 or 4 professors doing that on an overdrive. Like it's such a lucrative place, I guess. But you do have to, like, there are several well, constraints. Like you need to have the right kind of plants which can produce a fuel with a decent enough calorific value. Calorific value is the energy that is produced when you burn the fuel, and I'm saying it in a very common way of it. It's not the textbook definition, of course. And like you also end up seeing that there is an efficiency issue. There are sometimes issue with regards to, say, specific gravity, specific density, viscosity, and even if you solve all of that, that's when your engines can take that up and start producing energy out of it. So sometimes if you have a low calorific value and everything works, I can sort of imagine that it's like using two hands to push an elephant, very hypothetically, of course.
Okay, so talking about engines, do you think the biofuel, like, do we also need to modify the engines or the current engines we have in a car, let it be a petrol engine or diesel engine? Can we use biofuel directly or we have to mix it with petrol? If you have any idea about that part.
I mean, I haven't read about it in a while, honestly, but I mean, just by common awareness, I guess, like if you just think about it carefully, if you get the fuel that is literally like petrol, I assume you can use it in an existing petrol engine because that engine is designed for petrol. I mean, you can, for example, you might have had this experience. Like you go to the petrol bunk. You have that leaded petrol. You have that unleaded petrol. You have, I don't know, extreme.
Yeah.
I don't even remember the brand names, man. What the hell? Sometimes you will see that people will not even go to Bharat Petrol because they take it in the other one. So like it becomes a matter of engines being designed for some kinds of fuel.
Yeah.
So you would therefore have the constraint that you need a type of engine which can run this type of fuel. I mean, that sort of becomes very
Yeah.
obvious, I guess. And I mean, again, you cannot use petrol in a diesel engine and vice versa. I mean, I think you can, but there are several
Yeah.
risks associated with it.
I guess a lot of things come in play, not just calorific value. You have to think about the octane number, you have to think about ignition point, because for diesel it's low, for petrol it's high, you need a spark plug for that. You can use petrol in the diesel engine and it will just ruin the life of your or probably it won't start. You can use diesel and petrol engine, that will start, that will work, but probably the engine will
like again it depends
explode.
like it's also like the kind of what do you call it, the outputs that come out of it, how much you're burning, how much soot is being produced, all that. I mean, you have a lot of things to consider over
I
there.
mean, if you want to give it a try, we are not condoning it, but give it a try. Shoot a
We are
video
not
of it.
condoning it
Send
either, but we
yeah.
are not definitely not condoning it.
Means the more you try out, the more you learn. So
I mean, I don't know why. If you ever there's this thing called The Adventures of Tintin. I don't know how many of you guys know it. It's a cartoon. So is this one episode? I think it's called the land of the black gold. Yeah. So like in that the first these two twin guys, detectives. So what happens is they go like that whole thing is about petrol sabotage and stuff like that. So like, they put some petrol, they go and like suddenly boom. So I always keep remembering things like that. I mean,
that means brain associate things with other things, I guess.
Yeah, I know. That's one of the things I grew up
Yeah.
watching. So I guess it kind of has a good effect on me.
Okay, so last question for this podcast. If there are people who are interested in sustainable energy or similar fields, solar energy or whatever, just energy, what is just one suggestion, one advice you'll give them, how they can proceed, how they can make a career out of it?
I think we touched this topic a little in the last week itself, I guess. But so yeah, I mean, like continuing on that, you of course need to define your scope, because when you talk about solar itself, you have what is electrical, have what is solar thermal. So the kind of skills you need in the thermal are extremely different from the things you need in the electrical. So like if you want to start off with a baseline kind of a place where you know a bit of everything, I would suggest pay a lot of attention, and I think I said this already, but I'll reiterate this again. Pay attention to the electricals, pay a bit more attention when people talk about architecture and stuff like that, and also try to understand the behavior of a solar panel itself at the beginning. Like, so once you start to put these things in place, you will naturally know more. I mean, if it depends again on what you want to do. Like if you want to go into hardcore research, it's one thing. If you want to get into the application part, it's another thing. So you have all those constraints, but having said that, yeah, still a very interesting place to be.
Yeah, and if you have any specific question for us, just type them down in the comment section.
Yeah.
We will probably get back to you, or we can make a video out of it if we have more than a few questions which we can just answer in comment section. So
Yeah.
So that is it for today. Thanks for being here, Aswath, and don't forget to comment, subscribe, and like or whatever. You guys know what to do with this
Exactly.
video.
And don't miss the next ones. Of
Yeah.
course, it will be me asking him questions. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bye,
Okay
guys.
then. Bye.